When most people think of a farmer, they think the world's kind of big. They think a farmer has a tractor, a few acres, some crops, corn, wheat, soybeans, maybe produce, some livestock, sunrise, sunset, repeat. But if you think about it and you listen long enough, a farm will teach you something. Something that you don't hear very often. That your little section of the world, in that land that I live in, or anybody else that farms, will feed the world. I had two different times in my life at which I had a epiphany, I guess would be the way to describe it, and a life-changing event. You see, it was 2:30 in the morning, and I heard a noise. For the third time that day, I had some people coming back to try and rob me. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Unwanted visitors that I did not want on my farm. As I went running into the barn, I saw 2 individuals down that way. My dogs took off after him. What I didn't see was him over here. The security guy left, so that's a good thing. I didn't see that guy. He rolled one of my tractor tires over on top of me. It weighed 350 kilograms. The next thing I remember was a lady saying, "City and state, please." As I was coming to, I heard this voice again. I realized this might be the only help I have. I have stones embedded in my face and skin. It's -2 degrees Celsius. I don't know how long I've been laying there at that time. I found out later it was over 5 hours. This weight landed on the center of my back right here. My arms are pinned underneath me. My legs are caught. My phone had fell out of my pocket, and my dog had actually started my phone and made the phone call that saved my life. I love that dog. What I didn't realize is he did make a phone call to an ex-girlfriend before that, but we won't get into that. Anyways, as the lady started talking to me, I realized I've got to be clear with my message. In my mind, there's commotion going on everywhere. Fact is, I didn't know exactly what happened. I got lucky. The tire came down on me the right side. Because see, if that tire would have been flipped over, it had a metal ring that would have cut me in 2 pieces. I got lucky. I ended up talking to this lady and trying to convince her to clarify and pass my message on the best I could. Because see, she wasn't an emergency operator. She wasn't somebody normally handling that. It would have been the same as you guys getting a random call. I needed help. I got lucky. At the end of the day, help showed up. I got life-flighted to the hospital. I'm laying there when the doctors walk in to tell me the news. They said, "John, you're going to be black and blue. You have no broken bones. You have no internal bleeding. And you are going to be sore for a long time. But you're lucky. You're alive." They still couldn't believe it when I told them how I got help and that my dog's the one that saved me. Months go by, people, neighbors keep asking me, saying, "John, what were you doing out there at 3:30 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning?" Whatever, they didn't know. What they didn't realize is those guys had been there before. I had called emergency help. I gave them the name of the guy that I caught. I gave them the license plate number of the car and a description and what had happened. That message never made it to anybody. It never bridged to anyone. Scary, isn't it? As time went by, one day I was out on the farm and I was down on the ground, feeling the soil, looking at my crops. As I've done before. As my father did before. As my grandfather did before. And I hope my daughter does. She tells me she's going to. And I realized my little piece of the world is not that small after all. You know, some of the crops I raise go locally. Some go to a feedlot in Kansas. Some go to North Carolina to feed livestock. And just some of them get on a boat, cross the Atlantic, through the Mediterranean, and end up right here in Cairo, taking care of you guys. My little piece of the world isn't so small after all. The second time I had an epiphany was that as I was doing a few things on the farm, and I'd put all this together, I had started working with some different companies, helping them figure out what optioneering was. Because I had figured out to coin the term optioneering, because what it is I have the ability to see random things, but get clarity in chaos. Things might be going awry, but I can figure it out. I was stepping foot on a farm in Minnesota, and I had a company I was working with from another country, and as we're standing there talking, I'm talking to the guy that owns the place. We found out that we were fraternity brothers. He went to a different school at a different time, but we belonged to the same brotherhood. Amazing. We developed a friendship. We started working together. As time went by, he invited me to his farm in Puerto Rico. At his farm in Puerto Rico, where they do other work, we're standing there talking, and he's showing me stuff, and we're working on research projects. And you know what was interesting? And we were coming up with all kinds of ideas. He's like, John, you know this company and this company. What ended up being different about it is that day he told me, he says, I got a buddy coming in I want you to meet tonight. You'll love this guy. Sure. So we're standing there at a cigar bar in Puerto Rico, having a cigar, and he introduces me to his buddy Bill. Bill and I are standing there talking. At one point in time, I said, Bill, what is your last name? He looks at me, why? I said, I recognize your voice. He gave me his last name. I typed it into my phone. I said, is this your phone number? He's like, how in the world do you have my phone number? We just met. And I said, let me help you with this. We met 5+ years ago on a phone call. That's how I knew his voice. That's how I recognized him. We've made a bridge. We made a connection. My buddy's standing there still in disbelief on how this happened. Fast forward another year, and on my farm, my neighbor calls and he says, John, he goes, I got a guy that's looking for a piece of equipment. He's from a foreign country. He lives in Florida right now, but he's looking for what you're trying to sell. And I said, great, bring him by. So we proceeded. A couple weeks later, he called me, and my daughter and I, which you saw in one of the pictures here, we were out, and he called. He says, we're going to be at your farm in a few minutes. So we drove back into the farm. And as we drove back into the farm, get back there, and I'm standing there talking to the guy. And the guy literally looks at me, and he says, so, why you want to move this or sell this? He's going to send it to a foreign country. I said, why not? You need the equipment. But I looked at him and I said, where are you from? Now I'm going to tell you, my little 13-year-old girl over here standing there, and her eyes just rolled in her head because she saw what was happening. The connection in the bridge was already starting in my head, and she saw it. She gives me flack all the time for being the one standing there telling her, meet everybody, talk to them. You've got a connection somewhere, right? Well, this guy tells me he's from Kazakhstan. This is her. And I said, I've got a buddy in Kazakhstan that sells seed. He's like, oh, really? I said, yeah. I told him his name and his company. He looks at me and goes, long hair? Guess what? If you haven't put it together by now, I took a picture and I sent it to the guy he refers to as long hair. The same guy from Puerto Rico, the same guy from Minnesota. Our worlds just got really small. We connect in ways that we all don't know. When I encourage you to talk about optioneering, you see that my little protege here, she gets it. She understands the networking. I wanted to bring her to Egypt with me, but she has too many other things going on. But as life goes on, we can make a big impact from a small little place. My hometown is less than 200 people. This room holds more than my hometown. This city has how many millions? We can affect the world in every way. When I talk about optioneering, it's about working with companies and organizations and doing things that you're naturally doing. We're making connections here. People here have already messaged me and talked to me and said, hey, there's a couple in here that stayed just to watch me. Hope I didn't disappoint them. The world is small if we do it. Our voices can travel the world, and our effects and what we do can literally change the world. I encourage every one of you to get to know people around you. Know their background, know their story, because you never know when that optioneering piece is going to happen for you. Because you know what? It's not rocket science. It's not luck. It's not strategy. It's not perfect. But talking to people and connecting forms a bridge that you never thought possible. Same as me being here in Cairo, Egypt. Thank you.